Kandinsky's large plethora of art reflects his pursuit towards abstraction. His early experimental phase in Munich shows realistic and stylized cityscapes and landscapes. He dabbled with a variety of modern art styles that were rising in that country. His style was solidified when he went to Murnau near the Bavarian Alps. The Bavarian folk culture and its slower yet spiritual lifestyle strengthened Kandinsky's abstract style driven by spiritual means. This led to his middle expressive phase, dynamic and vigorous abstract compositions. They reflect his interest in theosophy and the transformational power of music. In his Bauhaus phase, his works became more geometric, influenced by Russian art movements during his Russian escape in World War I, and Bauhaus principles during his teaching stint at Germany's Bauhaus School. His late Paris phase brought in new motifs inspired by microorganisms, symbolizing new beginnings and rebirth. Throughout his oeuvre of works, he held expressive lines and colors with high regard. They hold the key to creating art that is removed from retinal reality and closer to the inner human emotions. In the age of industrialization and materialism, Kandinsky felt that the scientific worldview was seen as the absolute truth. While this view did result in a transformation of Western civilization, it left many people with feelings of alienation and empty souls. Influenced by leading theosophist Madame Blavatsky, he hoped to create art that can lead a spiritual revolution in the world. Just like how music can cause resonance in the soul when one hears a cacophony of melodies in harmony, he hoped that art can achieve the same spiritual enrichment. This spurred his desire to abandon naturalistic representation due to its reliance on the material world. His abstract pursuit led to the Blue Rider Group, charging towards a new era of art. Expressive form and color were to take center stage, as they were believed to carry concrete spiritual and symbolic values. For example, blue was the most spiritual color, donned by a rider that symbolized the ability to move forward. The group also promoted primitive art and rising art movements across Europe. These efforts were hoped to empower artists to express their inner necessity and convey universal human emotions regardless of nationality. Music was a major influence on Kandinsky. One of the reasons why he left his Russian professorship job to study art was because of his opera experience called Lohengrin. During the performance, Kandinsky saw colors in spirit and wild crazy lines sketched before his eyes. It is believed that he had synesthesia, a condition that allowed him to see and hear color. This experience made him realize that if music can evoke psychological, physical and emotional responses within the audience, then art can do the same. Hence, Kandinsky strove to produce object-free, spiritually rich paintings that suggest sounds and emotions through unity of sensations and create spiritual vibrations to the viewers. He gave music-inspired titles to his paintings: Impressions, Observations of the Natural World; Improvisations, Spontaneous Expressions of a Mood Coming from the Unconscious; Compositions, Ambitious yet carefully planned expressions of inner visions, with numerous drafts before creating the final work. Through his compositions of lines and color, he hoped to vibrate the human soul, just like how music created spiritual resonance within him. Kandinsky's ever-changing style had many influences. Impressionism, especially Claude Monet's Haystack, influenced him with their expressive brushwork and color, as they attempt to capture the phenomenon of light on scenes, rather than representing them as naturalistically as possible. Fauvism gave him the confidence to paint freely using expressive colors. Pointillism inspired his dabs of different colors placed side by side, to create colorful vibrations. Jugendstill's decorative natural forms and folk art themes inspired his lyrical lines. Symbolism's pursuit of truth enabled him to use art to convey spiritual truth through symbolic means. Cubism's flattened forms inspired him to do the same. Bavarian and Russian folk art and spiritual lifestyle influenced his choice of bright colors, strong outlines and abstract forms. Constructivism and suprematism's total abstraction using art's barest essential form pushed Kandinsky into his geometric phase. And the Bauhaus experimental atmosphere in unifying art, architecture and design strengthened Kandinsky's desire to create a universal language that will define modern civilizations. Kandinsky used a variety of materials, from oil to tempera, Indian ink to watercolor. He would make preparatory sketches to experiment with shape, color and space, before working on the final work. He would use a soft graphite pencil to lay the outlines of the design. Then he painted with a variety of brushwork, and layer new colors over old ones to transform muted areas into luminous spots, showing his meticulous considerations for composition. Some strokes were used to create subject matter reduced to pictographic symbols. They are not to be read literally, but felt spiritually. St. George, a revered saint in Murnau and Moscow, brought about spiritual conversion through good deeds. Kandinsky associated himself with this saint, as he too wanted to bring spiritual conversion through art. The Troika, a symbol of Russia as the divine Messiah to deliver spiritual salvation. Glyphs of biblical stories symbolizing death and rebirth, destruction and creation, such as the Noah's Ark and the Great Flood, and the four horsemen of the Apocalypse. These imageries reflect Kandinsky's foreboding sentiments about society and World War I. Kandinsky's search for creating a universal language resulted in his theories on color and form. A point marks a position of tension on a canvas. It can correspond to a sharp blow on a kettle drum, a triangle, or a short tap of a woodpecker. A line can create either static or dynamic movement. A straight line expresses infinity while an animated curve represents time. A basic plane has four sides. The above and the left side give an impression of looseness and freedom. The below and the right are heavy and constrained. Yellow is warm, terrestrial, and advances towards the viewer. Blue is cool, spiritual, and recedes from the viewer. White is silent and brings clarity. Black is nothingness and it obscures. When placed side by side, they can create dynamic or static contrast. Green is the placid middle notes of a violin, red is harsh trumpets, violet is the deep notes of a wood instrument. These theories enable Kandinsky to create symphonic compositions of dynamic equilibrium, in order to evoke spiritual vibrations amongst the viewers.